live. I've got Kassie here with me today. Hey, Kassie.
Hello. I'm
Thanks for
so excited to be here.
you. I'm excited for this chat. I'm always so excited to see where these chats are going to lead to. You just have no clue.
I know. Where is it going to go? We're not sure.
We never know. So, I'm just gonna wait. Here we go. Instagram's finally caught up. They're going live on Instagram now too. So I'll check back over there in a minute because that's most of the time where people were writing questions. We can't see them on here, which is very annoying. But I would love to start with you just giving us an understanding of life before you came into my world and I came into your world, and then also how that happened. So, a little
Yeah,
bit of as much as you're willing to share. I think it's really cool if we can be vulnerable about our past and things that have happened that people might be able to relate to. But yeah, childhood life, what led you to healing?
of course. Well, I am like an open book, so really nothing is
Amazing.
off limits. So basically, how I got into your world at this point in time, I think it was like 2021. I was actually working in the mental health field. So I studied mental health due to my own mental health struggles, which honestly started when I was about 13. And so I was working in the mental health field purely from a place of I want to be able to help people, when I didn't have that help available to me. So I was working in the NDIS space. I was working with people with psychosocial disabilities, very complex, very layered. And I was also working with a mindset MPT coach at the time, Jessie Williams, who also studied with Avrika. And I was listening to her podcast on the way to work, and it was an episode that you were in, and you were explaining what Avrika was, what you were doing, and no shit, I just had like this just visceral reaction to it. It was like this, I mean, we'll probably get pretty spiritual because I'm a pretty spiritual person anyway. But it was just like this intuitive, just like white light, like flow through my body. And I was like, I need to learn how to do this. Like I just knew. And I think it was that day I actually messaged you. And then the next day we jumped on a call just to have a chat about what the course was, like what it does and everything. And then I literally signed up the next day.
You're
It was
in.
literally, it was like, you're in. But yeah, especially from working in the mental health field, I felt like it was almost just like never enough. Like we were helping provide support to people with very complex needs, which was so needed, but it was almost like there was a lot of, red tape and regulations and things that we could and couldn't do. And no one was really healing. Like no one was getting better. And I understand obviously there's layers to it and we're building capacity and things like that. But I was like, okay, but what are we actually doing to try and help people heal from these things? And I think it was around this time as well. Again, I was still struggling pretty hard with my own mental health here. Um, and I actually kind of started looking up alternative therapies as well. And that was when I had my first Reiki session too. And it just like opened me up to the world of like energy healing. And I still remember my first like session to this day. It was really beautiful. I was able to just really, connect in with myself in my body. I felt the energetic shift, like literally leaving my body. And then obviously through Aruka, we learn about how, the energetics and, the limiting beliefs and the memory processing, the subconscious mind and everything is so wildly intertwined. And I was like, it just gives you the full picture. It's just like healing on a next level. So so yeah, that is kind of like how I got into Aruka.
So when you say you were like your mental health struggles started when you were 13, what was happening when you were 13? And I guess why 13?
Yeah.
What was happening up to that point? And then what was happening at that point in terms of like, what did your mental health look like?
Yeah, so it was obviously around the age of 13, we're going through a lot. We're entering, adolescence, puberty, our hormones, everything is changing. But I also it was due a lot to not being able to safely express my emotions. I was never taught, you know, how to express those things, emotional safety. And so it kind it's like that whole thing of like, you know, when you told over and over to stop crying, I'll give you something to cry about type of thing. It was like I was never actually taught how to express that. So what I did was I just held on to it. I held on to everything. I held on to all of my own things. I held on to everyone's things around me. And it just kind of it started to just get to a point where I would just, you know, I would cry out of nowhere. I started to just like really numb myself. And then I think going through that age as well, in a I was actually in a like traumatic relationship as well. And I mean, when you think of 13-year-old relationships, you're like, oh, like it's nothing. But it actually had a significant impact going forward to relationships in adulthood as well.
Mm.
But I guess to reiterate was not, I just numbed myself a lot. And once those things happened, it's like then, you know, the negative thoughts and everything start to flow in. And I think it was when I was, I want to say 20, I think, is I was starting to actually have suicidal thoughts and I was self-harming. And I didn't have a lot of support around me. I was kind of like the rock of my family as well. Like, you know, everyone came to me with their things and I didn't want to be a burden to anyone else. And that was a very strong belief that I had in myself was like, I don't want to burden anyone else with my things because everyone else is already going through such a hard time as well. So again, I learned to just keep it down and, you know, not do anything with it. And it was to the point I was just like numb. Like I was numb. The suicidal thoughts were like, you know, spiraling. And it's like I didn't want to die, but I didn't know how to live. Like, and I didn't know what that looked like for me. So I did actually I was seeing a psychologist for quite a few years, which was great. It gets you to like a base level. It gives you a space to be able to express the things that, you know, you didn't have another space to do. Um, and they, my psychologist was very adamant that, you know, I should go on antidepressants and things like that. But I just had like a niggle in me. Like I was reading about like the side effects as well. And I remember reading like increases like suicidal ideations and things like that, and that scared the shit out of me. I was like, I'm already like I'm already on the brink. Like I don't want
Yeah.
to make that worse. So for me, I decided not to be medicated for that. And then I kind of threw myself into my studies of mental health, and then I started working in the field, and then yeah, I started just researching alternative therapies because I'm like, while mainstream therapies worked for a period of time, I just felt like I was kind of just staying there. And I was like, this can't be it. Like, this can't be everything. And then that's when I got into energy healing. And then I studied Aruka. So, yeah, that is a little bit of my story.
I love that. And so when you said, because I feel like maybe when you were doing the work with Jessie, that was around the time that she was doing like more health. Or did you go to her for like health? Was it like health and
Yeah,
mind? Yeah,
it was called, she was running like a coaching container called Nourished in 90.
I remember.
I was experiencing really high levels of body image issues. So I was always like kind of overweight all through my childhood into my adulthood. Like I was just kind of like the bigger friend, or you know, I just always had a little bit of extra weight on me. And that really heavily impacted the way that I viewed myself, how I felt in my body. And I was like, you know, I think I need to do something like this to just try and get me on like the right track. And what I didn't actually expect was the practices that she used, you know, in her coaching container, going down to the core beliefs and everything. I didn't know anything about that. Like, and when we're talking about weight and we're talking about safety and protective layers and things like that, it was just like click, 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 and I was like, oh my God, this is
Light
not what
bulb,
I was expecting.
light bulb moments. I think, yeah, Jessie was still friends with Jessie, and shout out to Jessie. She's I don't think she's doing any of those things anymore, but she definitely sent a lot of women my way who she had been, I guess, using the core understandings of Aruka, not necessarily doing the one-on-ones as much, but
Mhm.
using it in like a group setting and getting people to understand like where things are actually coming from, like you said, and
Yeah, yeah.
actually having that understanding, because there are still so many people out there who don't understand what where their I guess where their struggles are coming from, whether it be lack of discipline or follow through, or whether it be self-sabotaging or emotional eating, or like over being feeling overweight in general, or something completely different. I think the thing that a lot of people don't understand is where their struggles are coming from, and I feel like that's what Aruka gives you, that understanding of where it's actually coming from, and those deeper layers.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know what? It blew my mind, and especially coming from, working in a field of mental health, we don't learn anything like that. Like, we I don't I can't honestly, I can't even remember what I learned in my mental health course, because I was like, it doesn't even matter to the work that I'm doing now. Like, it was, we didn't learn. We had a unit of trauma informed care, and it was literally just like, how to validate, how to make feel someone safe. And, while those things matter, we didn't actually learn about the trauma. We didn't learn about, like, where it starts, or the creation of beliefs, or even like our subconscious mind, or anything like that, which I think is just, it's so important. Like, it makes sense. But yeah, not taught in mainstream learning about all of these wildly intertwined concepts.
Yeah. Yeah, it's wild that it's not. I mean, it is becoming more well known, but still
Mhm.
probably nowhere near to the depth that I would personally like it to be. But
Yeah.
yeah, I think not enough people understand how to actually heal and what's actually possible first and foremost. And I think a lot of women got that from Jessie too, which is amazing,
Hmm.
because she was coming at it from a health and fitness and weight loss level, but she was doing almost all mindset deeper work, which
Yeah.
has really helped a lot of women. You you will coaching with Jessie, and then you heard me on one of the podcasts. I think I did 2 episodes on her
Hmm.
podcast, and then yeah, we had the call, and you were like, "This, I need to do this," and you started studying. And so I guess what's changed since then, and since discovering Aruka, since maybe doing it personally for yourself as well, having Aruka
Hmm.
sessions personally, like what you've noticed, what you've worked through, if you're comfortable saying, and then also like that client journey as well.
Of course. Um, so since learning about Aruka and starting it, my whole fucking life changed.
It's terrifying. People are like,
No, literally, like, oh, I don't even know where to start. Like, everything has changed. Like, obviously through the course you learn about so many different things, whether it's, perception, creation of beliefs, intuition, memory processing, and all of the trauma units, which are super freaking informative as well. What happened was I actually ended up quitting my job in mental health, because I was like, this just, I knew I needed to work with people, and I knew, like, down into my soul that I want to help others. Like, it's my pure purpose, but I could not do it in that capacity. So I actually went back to working in hospitality while I studied. And my journey is probably a little bit longer and a little bit different to everyone else's. I started studying in 2021, and I actually didn't finish, like, complete my practice sessions until this year. It was one of those things where it's like, you can learn, you can learn about all the things, and I was able to. I'm like, oh, that belief comes from there, and this belief comes from here. Um, but I really struggled to actually kind of experience it for myself. Like, I guess, no, that doesn't sound correct. I really struggled to, I
It was
had a
like
belief.
confidence, wasn't it? Like it was confidence to practice and confidence to
Yeah,
get started. And then you
yeah.
actually needed to go and have a Ruka done on yourself to
Hmm.
remove those blocks
Yeah.
first.
If you're watching and you're thinking about studying Aruka, don't skip the self-healing. Don't
Yeah,
skip the
don't see
self-healing units.
yeah, the self-healing units and the community, because there's a whole community there of people who are always looking for
Yes.
people to practice on. And
Hmm.
a lot of the time it's so weird because we know you've learned about it and we
Yeah.
know that it's going to change our life and you still don't take up the
Yeah.
opportunity. There's this like block there from doing something almost that we know is
Yeah.
almost guaranteed. We're seeing all these other people getting results and then we just avoid it.
Yeah, no, literally, and it was like it actually wasn't until last year I think I come across this like belief of mine that I actually didn't know that I held was like I didn't feel worthy of healing, and then it was like if I change, like everyone's gonna leave me, like everyone that I love is gonna leave because I'm gonna change and I'm gonna be a different person. And then it was literally just coming back and remembering that, the people that love me will stay for who for who I am and things like that. So it's really interesting the the conscious beliefs that you can see and then the unconscious that's hiding, behind that, and it doesn't actually come to light until you are in a session. So yeah, having I literally had such a deeply rooted like subconscious belief that I wasn't worthy of healing. And if we want to link it back, it's like all of those years of not feeling worthy of this and not feeling worthy of that. And then the self hate. And then I hated my body and I hated who I was. And,
Mm.
all of those narratives that I just picked up from life along the way. And I just took that and I called it my own when it wasn't even mine to begin with anyway.
Mm, yeah. I think it's that, like you said in the beginning there as well, I think it's so important. I speak about this often now with people is we can know all the things and we can convince ourselves that we're moving forward by working with our own mind or by learning, but actually we don't ever get to the deeper root cause of what really needs to be shifted in order to move forward until we're guided by somebody else and completely surrendered, because otherwise our subconscious mind and our programs are just going to keep coming back in and overriding to try and keep us safe, to try and keep us in the familiar. We fully have to be surrendered in that correct brainwave, in that state, in order to actually get to where we need to get to, which is why
Yeah,
healings just was never meant to be done on our own. We've made
of
it that
course.
way because we're so afraid of connection and other people and losing people and being alone, and then we isolate to become a self-fulfilling prophecy. But we do it all in isolation and we don't connect into the communities,
Yep.
and it's so common. And I know that you wouldn't be alone in people who have done the course but then not started practicing. And and I think actually you maybe also, was there a pause because you finished the old one and then I updated it and then you went through and did the new one again, didn't you?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you like
Hmm.
you also like did it the next level up, and you would have
Yeah.
absorbed everything even more. So you kind of did it in a great way.
I
So
think so too. We
yeah,
call it divine timing.
divine timing is exactly when it's meant to be. Not everyone's ready to practice straight away. And obviously, there was a level of undoing or uncovering that you
Yeah,
needed to move through before you could, yeah, practice. But you
literally.
did eventually start
Yeah,
practicing and get
I
some
did.
amazing results. So let's talk about that.
Yeah, so I have worked with a few people now, which after every single session, I'm literally just like, oh my God, like I get to do this, and it's honestly just like so wild now that, I going from experiencing sessions to actually, facilitating them and watching these beautiful changes happen within these beautiful women. And not only that, just like being able to witness someone be so vulnerable with themselves and so beautifully courageous is, oh, it honestly just melts my heart. Um, so yeah, even just, seeing the people that I've worked with, just walking away, just being like, oh my God, I feel so much lighter now, or like, I didn't know that that thing was still affecting me, or even just, thinking back to they'll be like, I think back to, that memory or that moment now, and it doesn't have, that emotional charge behind it, or it's not following me in my everyday life. And I was even thinking about this morning, like it's not always, what we perceive to be those big transformations where it's like, oh my God, my whole life's changed and things like that. It's the messages that I get where it's like, oh, I was able to have a nap this afternoon after being, wired for weeks, months straight, and, not sleeping properly. And I actually finally felt, safe enough or in my body enough to be able to rest or be able to relax. And I think it's really those beautiful moments as well that are just as important, when they can be like, I was able to, respond instead of react. I was able to sit with myself, or I was able to allow myself to rest, which I know can be a really big one as well. So
Mm.
it's always those beautiful moments after the session that really, it just makes it.
And I think they are life changing because when
Yeah.
you've lived in a certain state in a certain way, allowing yourself to feel that way and allowing yourself to take that rest is rewiring your nervous system. It's
Yeah.
rewiring your way of being. It is
Mm-hmm.
changing the way that you show up, the way that you live. It does change your life, and it's not in this like big dramatic way that people
Yeah.
sometimes think it is, but it still is changing. It's still
Yeah. Of
powerful.
course.
So I do you have any, any specific clients in mind, or is there anyone that that is happy for you to share an example of kind of, or even just give it, and you could give a generic example, but I'd love for people to understand when somebody books an Aruka session with you,
Mm-hmm.
what they're going to get. So like if they're coming to you with X, sort of like what you're going to, obviously we don't never know where the sessions are going to go, but
Yeah.
giving someone an understanding of if they're booking a session with you and the kind of things that you're working with, the kind of things that you like working with, things that you've worked with before that you feel really confident you'll be able to help people through that. I mean, the idea of Aruka training is that we can help anybody through any level of trauma, but yeah, a bit of a breakdown on that for somebody who's thinking, oh, maybe I want to work with Kassie.
Yeah, of course. So when now I feel like I've gone blank.
It
I
happens.
knew it would happen.
I mean, we don't have
So
to talk. It doesn't have to be like the, you come in 10 minutes and we talk and blah, 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 but just more like, is there something that you feel like you've worked with in women
yeah,
successfully, and where they were and where they are now?
yeah, of course. So I obviously, due to, my background and my personal experiences, I really love working with women who are maybe feeling a little bit numb or dissociated, kind of,
Mm,
more in a freeze response. I feel like we learn more about like fight or flight mostly, and a lot of the times people don't understand a freeze response and how that looks and things like that. So I love working with people with a freeze response because it allows me to, in the session, we're spending more time more so in, somatics and bringing them back into their body to allow themselves to feel and to experience all of the things that they kind of shut themselves out from. So obviously creating safety in those environments is at the forefront. But
yeah.
I can think of, one session in particular where the client that I was working with, she felt completely disconnected, from her body. And through the session, I especially made sure at the start that our meditation that we use for the theta brainwave was specifically kind of like targeted at, more so in the body, in the sensation and things like that, so she can start to get a feel like gently of what that feels like. And throughout the session we were able to I can't remember what the memory was off the top of my head, but there was so much movement involved with this memory that, you know, her body needed to experience, it needed to feel, it needed to release and things like that. And then at the end of my session, I do what I call is like a healing bubble. So when we're, you know, bringing in these new positive beliefs and things like that, I'll actually not leave. At the end of the session, you know, I pop them in a little healing bubble, and we get them to, you know, feel the energy of the words of the new beliefs that we're bringing in, and let them just like literally integrate and feel that, you know, into their body, into their energetic field and things like that. And the response that I got from the end of that was just, you know, she had stated that the end of the session was, you know, her favorite part because she could feel, you know, the new words and the new beliefs, you know, integrating and entering in through her body. And the fact that she was able to feel that on a physical level is just, it's beautiful. And yeah, I really loved that.
Yeah, so you love working with that free state and bringing people out of that numbness and
Yeah.
back into the feelings and the somatics and allowing
Hmm.
them to connect back into their body. Because I mean, that is, you have to be able to do that at some point, ideally in the beginning, so that you can actually. And there's a bit of an interesting one with that because a lot of people don't want to feel numb, right? And they hate being dissociated. But when they realize that coming back into their body and being able to feel again means that they have to feel the bad and the good, that's where it gets really tricky because people have their sessions and then they're like, afterwards, I felt all of these feelings, all of these awful feelings come up
Yeah.
to the surface. So do you find that, do you find that that is something that happens with clients or something that
It's,
yourself as well?
yeah, I do feel like, especially someone coming back into their body, back from their numbness and things like that, the integration period can be a little bit more intense, sometimes as their body is literally, you know, coming back into the now and it's experiencing these things that it shut off for, you know, months, years, decades, whatever it is. And it can feel really, really overwhelming. Like it almost feels like you're spiraling. And so the integration period, you know, after that, when it's centered as a session from that, can be, yeah, as I said, a little bit more intense, but it does not last forever. It's literally just, you know, recalibrating your body. It's integrating all of the new things. It's, you know, it's finding its way back home basically. And yeah, the only way through is out. So I do recommend, obviously, you know, when we do have these sessions, that it's a very compassionate integrated period, like integration period. We're focusing on, you know, um regulating as well, like after session care is super important for ones like this as well, because it's very easy to really spiral and think that, like, you know, you're going backwards and things like that, which I understand. So this is why we focus heavily on the integration period and let them know that, you know, because you have been out of your body for so long and things like that, it's just going to take a little bit of extra time and it's going to feel shit for a little bit, to be honest. But
Yes.
like there's no, we can't sugarcoat that,
It
unfortunately.
feels shit, but it feels better at the same time, which is like,
Yeah.
because I think when you talk about like the integration period as well, I always like to say to people, especially when you are coming out of dissociation or fight or flight, because what people don't realize is fight or flight is a form of dissociation because
Mhm.
the running and the busyness and the chaos is still a distraction and you're
Still
still not
running.
feeling. So
Mhm.
you're still technically dissociating and avoiding. But the integration is really important, but also it's understanding. I think that there's this disconnect where people think that, oh, all of these things are coming up, the sessions made it worse. Well, no, actually the sessions pulled you out of dissociation into your body so you can feel. That's actually the time when you need to be booking in the sessions more regularly, because that's the time when anything that hasn't been processed, anything that's been correctly processed isn't going to come to the surface because it's been correctly processed.
Mhm.
So the way that I like to think of it is, as you're coming out of dissociation and back into your body, and these things are coming up, that's the perfect time to be booking in those Aruka therapy sessions, because when the emotions are high, you've got them there. Like, you're like, this is the problem, and I can feel it and I can see it, and it's coming up and it's coming to the surface, and you're able to then get to the core of what's causing it and shift it. And the sessions are designed, as you explained and as you know, like, to shift it at that somatic level, to help release those emotions, to reprogram the subconscious mind around what's truth, and to process that memory, and to shift the energy of all of that, of the energy of the beliefs, the energy of the visual memories, the energy of the words, the energy of everything. Once we're going through and shifting that, it gets better and better. And I'm sure you found this with your sessions with Mel. Each session, it gets like, I get to the point now with my sessions, when I have an Aruka session, where sometimes they're deep and uncomfortable, but I'm laughing a lot of the time too. Like, of course that's there. And it's you have these, the healing journey doesn't stop. If you want to, you can stop it at any point and be this version of yourself. But a lot of us just want to always evolve. And so, but I find that period where it's really hard and emotional and everything's coming to the surface, that's the most important period to stay with it. Because after that, you break through. Don't you, do you find that? So that's like, here's the information, here's all the feelings you've been pushing down, and here's where they're coming from, and here's all the memories and all the shit. That's the time to keep going.
Yes, no, absolutely. And I think I'm just like thinking about like myself like after sessions sometimes as well, and I'm like, this is shit, and I feel like, what is happening? Like, why are these coming up? Like, I haven't felt this in X amount of time, and then it's like 2 days later, I'm like, I'm walking on sunshine. I'm like, wow, that's great.
Yes, it literally is. And it's like, you think that, I think as well, like going into a session, or like right before a session, I'm always like, this is gonna, like, I know that this is gonna make some big changes in my life, and I don't know where it's gonna end up. And what if I end up like, running away from my life, or closing my business, or breaking up with, like, all these fears come to the surface of like, what's gonna change? Because I know something's gonna change. And then afterwards you're like, oh, it was just me that needed to change, just a slight amount, just a little bit.
Just need to like shift over here a little bit.
Yeah, it's just my perception, and then you're actually fine. But
yes.
I think it is. We've had a lot of reviews lately from women with complex trauma, because Aruka and complex trauma just seem to be magnetizing towards each other, which makes sense because I talk about it. It's my history. But it's becoming known now as the modality that is working. Like, the words that have been used is, it's what works when nothing else works, which is like, oh, make me cry. That's like the most happiest sentence I've ever heard. And I think there's this perception that it's going to be really bad, but it's actually, when you're doing it consistently with someone, it is only a short period of time of that real, if you stick to it. It's only when we do a little bit and then we back off for a year, then we do a little bit and then we back off, that it. Do you find that as well?
Yeah. And based on personal experiences of like dipping my toe in and then back out for 6 months and then back in, it's just like, I don't know, once you do it once, like as we said before, you just need to keep going and just keep going, like keep coming back. And it's like, you already have the evidence that, from one session, this worked and this changed and things like that. It's just, it not that I think healing is ever quick, but it's like the big things, like almost like bang them out first, and then over a shorter period of time, and then like it's so
after that. I think this is the biggest paradox, isn't it? Because we talk about healing being more rapid than people expect, and then we also talk about it being a lifelong journey, and people are like, which fucking one is it?
literally.
I think it is that if you find something that works, and this is why, again, I love Aruka therapy, is that it's not just for here. It's not just for the struggle and the trauma and the heavy stuff. It also works for the highly self-aware spiritual woman who's at that other end of the spectrum who, you know, wants to connect into, I don't know, wants to tap into her higher self, wants to become the best version of
Yeah.
herself, wants to break down any limits, and wants to just keep making this, you know, magnetic, magical life. We're so trained in being able to hold the really heavy and meeting someone who's never done this work before, but also somebody who's been doing it for 15 years and is still blocked because
Yeah.
the method, it expands across the whole spectrum.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think there's also like, I don't know, I feel like sometimes there can be almost a misconception where, Aruka therapy is only used for, complex trauma in the context, I'm gonna say big and little traumas, even though I don't like to use that. But a lot of people think that it is just for, the bigger traumas and the heavier stuff and, all of the complex things. But it also works just the same of those things that you think are small. It's those micro moments where we did create a belief or we have been holding, you know, onto a narrative for 10 years that's no longer serving us. And that's actually one thing that I wanted to speak about today is that it's not just for the big stuff, and it's not just reserved for the people with complex trauma and things like that. It's also reserved for the people who been keeping themselves small for years because they don't have that self-belief, or they're too scared to move, and they don't know where to go when they're feeling lost, and all of those things. It works like, and they're sometimes, some of my favorites, because I'm like, oh my God,
Yes.
you get to live now. Like, we've gotten to a point where it's like
Yes.
we're moving from not just, surviving, but to living. And then we then get to a point where it's like, I want to live bigger. I want to live better. Like, I want to live the
Oh,
life that lights my fucking soul on fire. And it's like, they're just as beautiful, they're just as deep, and they have just as much change as well.
absolutely. Because there's that surviving, and then there's like, and then you come out of survival and you can sort of just like coast on by, or
Yeah.
you're like that sort of person that pushes it to the next level and you're like, okay, now I'm like, I want to go big, I want to fucking live, I
Yeah.
want to really live. And I
I
think
want to feel every single emotion.
yes, and I love them all.
And I'm so grateful.
Give it all to me. And I think when I created Aruka, I was working with a lot of people with a full spectrum of things. Like, it wasn't just trauma, but I did find that the people with the really big trauma, there was a lot of resistance, there was a lot more protection. Like, they were the most difficult people to work with, especially complex ongoing trauma. And so something that I speak about in the course, you will remember, is I say to people, if you can learn how to work with the big stuff, working with the small stuff is easy. And it's not that it's small stuff, it's big stuff to the people who are coming to you, and we respect that and honor that. We're never going to be like, oh, that's not trauma. But we can work with it all, because once you've worked out how to work with the hardest of the hard, the biggest of the big, the heaviest of the heavy, the other things do start to become like breathing. Those sessions are so because the method works across the four pillars. It works in any context, and there's so many tools there for those contexts. So we've got people that are struggling to ask for a promotion at work, struggling to put their hand up for a promotion even though they know they deserve it, or the person who's stuck in a toxic relationship, or they know they're not in love anymore but they feel too bad to leave, or the person who has social anxiety, who has a really, has no other issues, but they just feel uncomfortable being around in social situations. They get really uncomfortable because of something small that happened in school. Like, these things are also traumas, but they're also, people just kind of dismiss them and learn to live with them. This is just 3 examples, but all of them can be fixed. All of them can be undone. All of them can be complete, so that that's no longer an issue. And I'm trying to think of more examples that are like relevant to everyday people, because I've worked with complex trauma for so long, my mind just goes straight to the worst.
No, but it's even just like people that are just feeling like, oh, this is how life works, and that's just how it is. And I think this is almost like not a dangerous place to be, but it's kind of like people don't realize that, just because it's what everyone else is doing, and oh, my job's not too bad, and this, my relationship isn't horrible, like, he doesn't hit me or he doesn't abuse me, so like it's fine. And it's like there is another way to live. Like there is there is another way to live where, you know,
Mm,
you wake up and you feel energized in the morning and you can't wait to start your day, or you know, you get excited by, you know, the trees and the sun and things like that. And it's like it just almost opens your eyes up to just so much more beauty. And it doesn't have to be, you know, mundane, or just because old mate down the road is doing it, or like, you know, work's not too bad, it pays the bills type of thing. And it's like, no, no,
yeah,
you don't
no.
have to do that.
If you're not, I feel like a good way to describe whether you need that work is if you're not waking up feeling like I get to be me. I get to be me. I get to live this life today. I get to experience whatever life comes at me with today, and I get to live and I get to see this. And if you're not feeling that, like I get to feeling, like I get to be me, I get to live. I'm so grateful to be alive. If you're not feeling that, not all day, every day, because that's unrealistic. But
Not
if you're not,
sustainable.
yeah, if you're not feeling that, then I think there's work there to be done in
Yeah,
creating a life that you want to wake up to.
yeah, no, absolutely. And I think that's a perfect indicator actually to, you know, see where you're at, is like how are you feeling when you wake up in the morning. But actually I want to go one further and just be like, how many people are actually just waking up and not even, you know, connecting, you know, with themselves and asking themselves, you know, how they are of a morning or how they are during the day, and things like that.
Yeah, 100%. Most people aren't connected to their bodies at all.
No.
Most people are, like, we're so afraid of our feelings. And so
Yeah.
us are distracting, scrolling, numbing, drinking, drugs, whatever we can, keeping busy just to not feel our feelings, which is an easy habit to slip back into. I myself even
Yeah.
slip into that
Oh,
sometimes. Like, oh, what am I avoiding feeling right now? Okay. And we say
honestly.
we love the light and the dark and the pain and the pleasure and all the good and the bad, but when the bad and the pain and then it comes, you're like, no.
Fuck, not more. No, you know what? I feel the exact same, especially like, you know, moving off to Gold Coast, you know, with myself away from, you know, all of my family and most of my friends and things like that. I think I've been here nearly 2 weeks now, and I'm only just starting to feel human again, because I was like, you know, as soon as I got here, it was just like such a shock to the system. And I was like, oh my God, I'm in this new environment and I don't know what I'm doing. And I did find myself slipping back into, you know, old habits and things like that. But I mean, now I've got all the tools in my tool belt. But
Doesn't mean
it's,
it doesn't work if you don't use them.
but yeah, it was just, you know, an adjustment period to all of those things. And, you know, yeah, just grounding nature time has been really helpful.
And I do you know what the consistency as well, like this is gonna sound so silly when I say it out loud, but I like went through, I felt like I worked through the worst of the worst and I came out the other side. And I just expected that going through the worst of the worst and coming out the other side, it would be like sunshine and rainbows. And I just thought that, I spent a period of time really focusing on positive psychology and on implanting positive beliefs and meditating every day and going slow and looking after myself. And it was about 2 months and I was like, I feel fucking amazing. I'm great. This is really working. So I like stopped doing everything. I was like, I feel like I'm good now. So I just slipped back into like not meditating every day and just like working a little bit more, pushing a bit harder and letting those practices fall away. And then all of a sudden I was going like this and I was like, oh, and I was speaking to my neurotherapist and he was like, yeah, like if you want to be really good at running and you want to be really strong and fit, you don't just like run for 6 weeks and get run fit and then be like, well, now I'm run fit for the rest of my life. He's like, kind of the same with
But
your
how's
brain.
that done?
Like, right. Should have really known that. I do teach that. But I just was like, no, like you heal and then you're healed. No, actually part of healing is becoming the person who is slower. It's becoming the person who does look after themselves consistently, who meditates, who does all of the things that nourish themselves consistently. And I think we have that expectation sometimes of like, we're going to heal in these sessions and then just have this like easy peasy life without putting in any effort
Yeah,
after.
it's like, oh, I'm healed.
That's like
That done.
that's a block in itself. That's a book in itself to think that you can go back to you can't go back to the life that you had before, because the life that you had before was created by what happened, and that version of you can't exist. And that's honestly, in my experience, the hardest. Actually, healing all the fucked up shit was a piece of cake compared to I can't be that person anymore. I
Oh my
can't be
God,
the
yes.
butterfly. I can't be that person anymore, because if I start doing those habits again, I'm going to experience panic and anxiety, and I'm going to get back into the rat race, even though there's no trauma there. I will still go back there. So you actually do have to become a new person, and that's like the hardest bit is being that new version of yourself.
Mhm. I No, I absolutely can relate. Do you know what? I actually feel like for like personal sessions and things like that, the hardest thing was actually letting go of the past versions of myself that, kept me safe and all of those sorts of things. And it was actually really interesting. I had this one session that was purely just to do with, past versions of myself. And I always thought that it was them, it was going to get a little bit spiritual. I always thought that, it was those past versions of myself that was trying to like, bring me back and things like that. But it was actually my present version being too scared to let them go, because who am I? Who am I without them? And who am I without these habits? And who am I, without these patterns and things like that. I was that fucking terrified of change that I was like, oh my God, like I can't. And I literally think I spent a whole session was just like working through letting go those past versions of myself and literally just bringing in my higher version of like, who I am now and what kinds of things I do and, all of that sort of stuff. So it was very easy for me to be like, oh, my past versions of me that's, bringing me down or stuff like that. And it's like, actually, no, you're scared to change because
Present
who are
self is
you?
holding on to them. Present self is making the choice to keep holding on to them. Yeah.
Present self is not doing the thing.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, it's honestly one of the hardest things. And like you said, it feels safer to keep those versions there
Yeah,
than to
yeah.
change it, because we don't know. And there's that really sticky in between bit where you are shifting, but you're not quite there yet. And it's almost like an identity crisis, because you don't fully know who you're becoming. And so but you don't really recognize who you were, because you've shifted that. And there's like this weird middle ground that takes a little bit of time to figure out, like, who actually am I now, and who do I want to be, and where am I going, and what's happening here. Yeah.
Literally. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I feel like I could chat all day too, but I was like, I think this is the longest one. I normally have tried to keep them to half an hour, but I'm like, yep, 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 yep. Well, I think we've been 47 minutes today. So
Oh, I'm a yapper by nature. So.
yeah, I can't stop. But so for anyone who's wanting to find Kassie, I'm going to post this live to the grid, and I will have you linked on there. And we're going to post some clips from it, and we'll link you on there as well. So anyone who has jumped on today, or anyone who watches this, if you've watched to the end of this 48 minutes from the grid, like that is an
You're
OG.
the MVP.
But yeah, all the clips will link back to you as well. But thank you so much for coming on and
Thank you for having me.
things aruga and healing and therapy. And yeah, it was so nice to have you.
Oh, thanks. I know it was really nice to be on here. So thank you.
All right, I'm just gonna end this one.